Speaking of Latin,
Yes, which we were.
we were. Did you read about one of our good friends of the show,
I did.
Gavin Williamson?
I just find this really odd that Latin is considered to be an elitist subject. So we're going to teach it to 40 schools in the UK to make it stop being elitist. So I don't know how many hundreds of schools, or possibly thousands of schools there are in the UK. It's more than 40.
I imagined all these thousands of schools throughout the UK just doing some collective eye roll as well. Yeah. But I liked that he listed the ways in which Latin is useful.
I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of etymology. Have we discussed Dawn Butler being told to leave the chamber?
No, we haven't. Tell me what happened.
So she called the Prime Minister a liar. She said he had lied. And the Speaker of the House said, would my right honourable colleague like to rethink her language? And she said, no, he lied. And she was asked to leave.
Yes, I think didn't she say that she's lied
lied on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
Multiple occasions, and hasn't been held to account for those lies. And as she was leaving, she said, I find it very strange that we have a governmental system, a parliamentary system, I should say, that prevents me from calling somebody a liar, but doesn't prevent that person from lying.
Mm.
This is a podcast in which two friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing. And I did learn this week that whole thing about a frog boiling in water, and then how the water is suddenly changing, that actually it's completely wrong, that if you put a frog in boiling water, it would likely burn itself and be unable to get out and die, as opposed to if you have a frog in water and it's slowly getting hotter and hotter, eventually it would just get a bit uncomfortable and hop out.
Oh, so this is a complete fallacy.
Yes, exactly.
So I love that. That's a fallacy.
Yeah. It's a fallacy according to something I read or some podcast I listened to, which I probably won't even bother finding for the show notes. Just look it up yourselves, you lazy motherfuckers.
Also, can I just encourage any listeners to not engage in empirical research? Because as a narrative, it makes perfect sense to say it's like a frog in water. You know what we mean, even if it's inaccurate. What I don't want is to somebody, So
I want
John
the pedants. I want our
Chichester.
listeners to all be pedants.
I actually took 4 different breeds of frogs, 2 of them native to the UK.
I closed their eyes.
2.
I closed my own eyes.
I placed 1 in boiling water.
Call it frog number 1.
Let's not go there because we don't want this kind of
Well,
brutalism.
Yeah, but I want the accuracy. I want the truth. You can't handle that. I watched A Few Good Men.
I can't handle
the other
truth.
day.
Oh, that was
Jack Nicholson.
I was trying to think of the man, Aaron Sorkin. Aaron Sorkin's first.
That's right. It
sort
was
of foray, isn't it? Because that was a play.
It was a play.
First.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was before someone put me onto a TV show that I've watched so much in the last 48 hours that I've woken up each morning feeling like I'm hungover from having looked at a screen for so long each day.
I am so sorry, but for those listeners interested, this is The Good Fight, which is the semi-sequel to The Good Wife, which was a long-running sort of drama procedural that was about a disgraced politician's wife who returns to a career in the law.
Oh, so that's the main. That's the main white
show.
actor in this. Is that the woman?
No, that's not. That's Christine Baranski. Christine Baranski played a supporting role in The Good Wife, but when that show finished, the makers of the show, Robert and Michelle King, wanted to carry on with the narrative of Christine Baranski, but they also wanted to address the fact that I think there had been some critique that mainstream American TV was quite white, and when it did have black characters, they were not effectively written as black.
Yeah, so thanks for putting me onto that. I've got through the first series.
Well done.
What is that thing where you go, I've got to watch the next one? It's not that the show's so compelling where you have to go, I have to find out what happens next. You know, it's really
because
interesting.
you know that it's there.
But I could just savor it. I could spend months and months just watching one a week and just savor.
But it's like opening a packet of biscuits. You know you don't need to eat 6. You can just have one. But you've opened the packet of biscuits and you're like, well, go on then. So there's a kind of mindlessness about it.
My terrible story about that was there's a particular kind of biscuit in Australia called TV snacks. I think it's spelled Teevee. And they're basically little kind of basically butter cookies of different shapes covered in chocolate. Quite small. Small as in chuck one in your mouth, small. Mm-hmm. And we had a packet. I was flatting when I was not long after I'd arrived in Melbourne, and we had a packet of them. And they're quite big packets, and it was about 3/4 3/4 full. I thought I'll have a couple, and I was watching TV at the time, and I realised I'd finished off the entire packet, and then went down to the service station, like the garage. What do you call that here? Servo.
I would call it the garage.
The garage
in a very
servo.
Northern way. The garage.
The service station, exactly, and bought a replacement pack, and thought, I know what I'll do. I'll eat them down a little bit so that it's basically the same amount that were in there when I. But then I ended up eating a whole packet as well, and I had to go back to the garage, buy another box, and eat that one down to the. Yes, as my nephew will say, you really a long-standing joke between us is that I would fail the marshmallow test over and over and over again.
Just for the listeners, explain the marshmallow test.
Marshmallow test is a very famous psychological, although it's been challenged recently, but the idea is that
a lot like frogs.
A lot, exactly. That it was done with very young children, and a simple thing is that this will be in the show notes, the video, because the videos are excruciatingly funny and joyful. But they would be put a marshmallow on a plate in front of them, and they'd be told that you need to, if you don't eat this and you wait for however many minutes, you'll get a second one. If not, you only get the first. So it's basically a test of what do you call it when you delaying gratification.
Yeah.
And but it's also been correlated with success in life, which is, you can imagine, that's where the tricky parts come in, and the way in which it's been contested. And there are different ways in which psychologists measure the idea of being successful, and those, you could say, are culturally agreed upon, that so-and-so is a successful person because A or because B, etc. But it's still a bit full on, isn't it? I mean, but I think it depends on the measures of, there are different ways in which they describe success in this. Anyway, the videos of these children and the strategies they employ to prevent themselves eating this one marshmallow are truly hilarious and just so beautiful. But I think I would fail it to this day. I think if they put a marshmallow on there and said, just wait 2 minutes, I'd just go, fuck it, I want that now.
Well, given that you've just watched an entire season of The Good Fight in 48 hours, yeah, Finn's right. You're going to fail that test.
Yeah. It is the contemporary equivalent of the marshmallow test, is the binge watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a little text back and forth earlier on in the week because we did. And we both had a little bit of a wobbly week. We were going to potentially talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with my wobbly week is it means we'll touch on one of our very common themes in this podcast, which is, it sort of touches on death, really. And so I'm a little bit,
We're okay, because last week we didn't talk about death at all, and all of our unfaithful listeners know exactly that. It's a one-on, one-off.
So we might in the download numbers, we might see little bi-weekly or fortnightly spikes in when people go, oh no, we're going to skip the death episode this time. Shall I tell you my story? Do you want to start with your story?
I think I'd much rather hear yours.
I was out running, and my very dear uncle of mine has been a bit sick. He must be knocking on the door of, he must be getting towards 80, and lives in New Zealand. And so people may not know this, but it takes more or less 24 hours plus to get to New Zealand from the UK. It is a long haul flight. And and also my mum's 80 plus, right? And it got me thinking about, oh boy, this is going to be pretty hard. I mean, I want to ask it as a question of you. It got me thinking about going to see her, but recognizing that it would probably be the last time I saw her. Or effectively going to see her for the last time. And she would likely know that. I would likely know that. Although it could be said or unsaid. Or not. And, for example, just fly to a funeral. Or not. And I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know what to say either. I mean,
Go on.
No, I was going to say, my parents live out of the country. But of course, I think what it does is it simply underscores that the chances are we won't be with the people that we love when they die. Because really, you could be in New Zealand and you could be around the corner. My dad's dad, my dad's dad was diagnosed with lung cancer when he was 89. He wasn't a smoker at that point, I guess, like anybody of that age. This would have been, God, I was 15, so what's that, 33 years ago? So it would have been the early 90s, I guess. Yeah, late 80s, early 90s that this happened. So my granddad was born in 1899.
1899?
I know, it's hilarious, isn't it, to think that my granddad was born in 1899.
Yeah, it just shows you how quickly our generations... extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
2 generations back, and we're back in the 1800s.
Oh, exactly. Especially if, like, my dad's side of the family, my dad's parents had a lot of kids. They had, like, 6. And my dad was the second youngest. So there was a big gap between his eldest and him. I think his eldest sibling was 16 or 17 years older than him. So he was quite a late child, which means his parents were relatively old. And my parents didn't have me until they were in their early 30s. So, I'm a relatively late addition. So that's, so I was,
Yeah. So
anyway.
there's a slightly skewed or unusual distances or times between those generations. They're lengthy spaces between generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody I went to school with, I'm the godfather for her son. And she's now a grandma and has been a grandma for some considerable time.
You went to school with her?
I went to school with her and I'm like, how the fucking hell is she a grandma? But of course, she had a kid at 17.
Yeah.
And her kid had a kid at like 20.
Yeah.
So actually, and then I think the kid is like 10 or this grandchild is 10 or something now.
Yeah.
So it's only a couple of years until she's going to potentially be a great-grandparent. And she was only born in 72. So you kind of go, wow, there is that.
That's the other end of the continuum.
Yeah, totally the other end. But my dad's dad, my granddad, was diagnosed with lung cancer. And he died relatively quickly. I think he died within 4 weeks.
Yeah.
My dad was about an hour away, and his dad was dying, and he made regular trips down, and he was in the house when he died, but he wasn't in the room. He'd sat with him for a couple of hours and got up, walked out of the room to stretch his legs, get a cup of tea, went back in, and he was dead. And there's that, I think what I was taking a very long-winded way of getting to is, I think the distance between our elderly parents and ourselves just reinscribes that idea that, you can be in the same house and still miss that moment. And so I think there is we freight this anxiety as if the distance makes us, I don't know about that.
But it's also just to add one more thing into the mix is, my tremendous ambivalence about flying from an environmental perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And you're certainly pumping plenty of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every time you fly to New Zealand, even though, as you know, we both understand those flights are happening anyway. Although if enough people stop going, then they don't.
Yeah, and we also understand that there's the personal ethics of something, just because it's that them and us, isn't it, that we've talked about in the past, that, you know. But I think you're, I hadn't thought about the, how does that sit for you?
Oh, I just don't have any clue. I don't have any clue. Because actually, you know, I like it's interesting, the story you tell about, well, you know, you can be in the next bedroom, in the next room and not be there. And of course, I'm not talking about being there when, let's say, my mother dies. I'm not talking about that at all. Although I had that experience when my dad died, which was, I was basically waiting and sitting around, and he wouldn't die. And so I went back to work. I went back to work in New Zealand and was coaching tennis when my dear friend Anna Callender had a phone call where she was running this sort of tennis camp, and she knew what this phone call was going to be about because it was sort of always just there. So I remember that's when Mum told me that Dad had died, and I had to, bike home through the hills of Kandala and into Thorndon, I think it was, in Kilburn or whatever, it doesn't matter, in Wellington in New Zealand. And but I missed, so I missed the moment of his dying. Even though,
what was that bike ride like, Simon?
It was truly surreal. It was the most. And this is a beautiful ride. Like, for people Wellington is a very hilly city, and it was in summertime, just before Christmas, and I loved that ride. And I really knew the ride very well. And it's not a short ride either. It's you do quite a lot of physical work on it. And I remember just biking as fast as I possibly could, but at the same time sort of reveling in that the knowingness of it. But then also this crazy abstraction going on in my mind. Crazy abstraction. He's gone, he's gone, he's gone, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. And, it's, it's funny, I don't even feel it. I don't, there are many things that would make me very upset thinking about the death of my father. But that's not one of them. That's just a kind of sort of a surreal, beautiful experience in a way. But this I was hoping you'd give me some like really sharp, and I go, sharp answer, advice, and I go, oh yeah, I'll do that. But I don't know what to do. I actually really don't know what to do. And the worst of it is I feel like there's something, I think, about the unstated aspect. If I were to go there and spend 2 weeks or whatever with my mum, and then the saying goodbye, and the kind of unstated knowing that what was happening in that goodbye. You know what I mean, eh?
I know exactly what you mean, and I think
better than the knowing, better than explicitly stating it, maybe.
Is it?
Because we don't know.
I don't know. I mean, what kind of a relationship do you have with your mum? And I'll qualify that question. I think I've spoken at length about the fact that most of the conversations I've had with my mum since I was about 12 have been about her imminent death.
Yes. It's really, I don't know the origins of the word imminent, but it's like she's not quite getting that part of it.
Yeah. There is a sense, though, that she's always preparing me.
Yeah. You've definitely talked about that quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And I think that's in part due to the fact that her dad, well, actually the man she refers to as her father, because she sort of somehow needs to keep this clear in her head. Her father died when she was 2, and her dad died, which is the man who adopted her. So my grandma got remarried, and my mum's stepdad decided he didn't want to just be her stepdad. He wanted to adopt her so that she would feel properly held. Which sounds like a really lovely thing. Mm. As a signifier, I think it's quite strong. So she will often talk about her father and her dad as 2 separate people, because they were to her. And he died
So her dad was the person who raised her. Is that
Her
how...
dad was, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
right,
gotcha.
yeah. And he died unexpectedly when she was relatively young, and I remember her being somewhere away and having to make a trip back and having packed the wrong dress and being really embarrassed that she was wearing a sort of a floral dress to his funeral. And my grandma going, he can't see. He doesn't care. I don't care. I think there's a sense that because she lost her father early and her dad suddenly, that she's been always anxious about being unprepared for death, and she doesn't want me to be unprepared.
So that's been her coping strategy for that situation.
Absolutely. And
So,
so
she's not going to pass down her floral dresses to you in this case.
No, she's not. She's not. But I do wonder, I feel that conversation about this might be the last time we see each other is a conversation that we would have. But that's, that's informed by decades of talking about her death.
Yeah, this is difficult because I think that is a conversation that I could have with my mother, but I think the conversation is made almost impossible because of the distance. Because the trips are not every day, in the sense of your trips to see your mother are every day. They don't happen every day, but they're not unusual.
No.
But my trips to New Zealand, even if I were to go every year, are still something. They're still an event, you might say. Quite intense.
Yeah.
Quite intense, Lee. I'm so used to my microphone sliding downwards that I'm starting to imagine it. Like when you you don't have your phone in your pocket and you feel it vibrate.
Yeah, that's called loneliness.
It's called loneliness.
Loneliness. That's what happens when you feel the phone ringing in your pocket, but the phone isn't there and no one's ringing. It means that you are just desperate for somebody to reach out.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, I have it all the time.
I thought it was like phantom limb type thing.
It's a little like Phantom Limb, only it's Phantom Friend.
Oh, you're bringing me down. You're bringing me down, man.
Oh, let me bolster you. Let me pump you up. Then I had such a good time.
I'm so glad for the word "up" at the end of that sentence.
That spinning and not spitting out, not letting blood fly out of your face reminds me of the thing I didn't tell you, which was Akram Khan. He's a right spinny little fucker, isn't he?
I gain excellent for the tombstone. A right spinny little fucker, is that what you said?
Oh, yeah, he's a right spinny little fucker. Or, like I said, he was too old now. Used to be a spinny little fucker. Now he's old. In fact, now he's dead.
Did do lots of spinning.
No, he's not dead now. I'm imagining desecrating his tombstone, not murdering him. He did a lot of spinning, and this would have been 25 years ago, maybe.
So you were just becoming dance adjacent then?
I was just becoming dance adjacent, and he was just becoming dance famous. So he was still playing very small venues. So this was a venue of maybe 120 seats, if that. And it wasn't even a quarter full.
Akram, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Akram?
You've been dissed by a smooth academic.
Is it dissed? Does he use the word dissed?
No, I am, because
You've been hit by. You've been hit by.
You've been struck by.
Nice.
Smooth criminal. Ding, 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 ding. Now we're going to have to cut this because we can't reference Michael Jackson.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. He spun around and he sweated right into my mouth.
Oh, I was just sweat though.
Because I was right. Oh, yeah, no, he didn't bleed. He just sweated right into my mouth, and I didn't know whether I was delighted or horrified. I decided.
Do you think he was aiming?
Horrified.
Like you're at one of those the Japanese restaurants where they throw little bits of meat into your mouth from afar.
Did we ever go to that place in Northampton together?
We did. It was like Northampton's poshest place, wasn't it?
It was of the places that you would eat out in Northampton. It was of the top two. It was that place or the church.
Definitely in the top two.
It was in the top
that's
two.
right, the church. I forgot about that.
And the guy would always catch his egg in his hat. I loved that.